Welcome back to Norse Mythology 101, where we dig deep into the origins and world of the Norse people and their legends. Today we're focusing on pre-Christian Scandinavia before it was influenced by the new gods. We will look at their religious practices, the old gods, and the rituals. Before we begin, I'd like to give credit to Dr. Matthias Nordvig and other scholars such as Anders Nygaard and Eriksson for their invaluable contributions to this research. I used information from their articles and lectures to make this video and will leave the citations at the end. Now, let's go back in time, before Christ was even a thought, a time when the old gods walked the earth. Understanding this era provides a foundation for comprehending how Norse mythology evolved and the profound impact it had on Scandinavian culture. Pre-Christian Scandinavian religions developed between the Romano-Celtic and Sami traditions, with influences from North Africa and the Near East as well. From the 300 to 400 CE, Christian influences can be traced. By the 700s, Scandinavians increased their interactions towards the east, and during the Viking Age, these interactions brought them into contact with Buddhism, Islam, and possibly Manichaeism and Zoroastrianism. This means that Christianity came into the picture around 700, probably from missionaries, while before that, the Norse gods were the primary focus of worship. Our journey begins in the Rhineland area during the 1st century, where the earliest written indications of pre-Christian religions are found. The Roman historian Tacitus wrote Germania in 98 CE, mentioning several deities that appear to be prototypes of Odin, Thor, and Njord. In Roman and Latin sources, Odin is translated to Mercury and Thor to Hercules or Jupiter. Tacitus also mentions Nerthus, a female predecessor of Njord. From the Rhineland area in northwestern Germany and the Netherlands, votive stones from the period 0 to 300 attest to the presence of gods and concepts known in Old Norse mythology. The Matronae, 3 female deities that presided over the aspects of fate, carried names similar to those in Old Norse texts, such as Alagabia, meaning power giver. The latter part of this name, Gabia, is known as given in Old Norse, and Gefn is another name for Freya. Inscriptions also show veneration of Mars Halamartis in the Netherlands, and Mars Think So by Hadrian's Wall in England. These are Germanic versions of Mars, possibly Tyr or Tiwaz. Mars Halamartis, the murder of men, and Mars Think So, the Mars of the General Assembly, show the varied nature of these gods and their roles. The bogs of southern Scandinavia reveal widespread sacrificial activity until the 500s, where the main cult appears to move into central halls. Prior to this period, water and bog sacrifices were a primary way of communicating with their gods. These sacrifices included personal items, food, animals, wagons, wheels, humans, and precious metals. Around 500, monumentalism and temple sites became more prominent. This period saw the construction of magnate halls, which became centers of religious life. Many of these halls were built near bodies of water, indicating the continued importance of water in their rituals. It was during this time that a god like Odin became more popular, possibly due to its association with new forms of rulership and military organization, such as the herd or standing army. These developments were likely influenced by the return of the Heruli, a group who came back after their kingdom in what is now Austria and Hungary was destroyed. Nordvig 2024. From 700 and during the Viking Age, more artifacts align with what we know from written sources about Old Norse mythology. Runic inscriptions mentions gods, giants, valkyries, elves, dwarves, and so on, including names of individual gods like Thor, Odin, and Tyr. Depictions of gods and other figures directly associated with stories recorded by Snorri Sturluson or in the Eddic poetry are plentiful. Nygaard 2015. Non-Scandinavian authors produce stories and description of temples, rituals, and beliefs, which can be compared with the content of the Edda, Eddic poetry, and the saga literature. This comparative analysis helps us understand the belief systems influencing the Germanics in Scandinavia and northwestern Europe. From the earliest times, pre-Christian Scandinavian religions evolved between the Romano-Celtic and Sami traditions, incorporating influences from the North Africa and Near East as well. Erickson, 2017. During this time, the role of religious leaders and their political power was significant. Sacral rulers, often considered semi-divine or divine, held sway over the populace, blending religious duties with governance. This interplay between religion and politics can be seen in the archaeological and literary records of the time. The pantheon of Old Norse gods is likely much more complex and varied than what medieval authors like Snorri Sturluson led us to believe. Place names are a good source for assessing the diversity of sacred sites associated with different gods in pre-Christian Scandinavia. Thor, Odin, Freyr, Ullr, and Njord are the most common names found in place names. Female deities are hardly mentioned, and Tyr is predominantly found in Denmark, with only one site in Norway. Ullr is absent in Denmark but plentiful in Norway and Sweden. Depictions from the migration and Viking ages show that different myths mentioned in Snorri's Edda and Eddic poetry existed long before they were written down. One such story is how Tyr lost his hand to the Fenrir wolf, depicted on the Brachtiet from Skridstrup, Denmark. Hope I pronounced that right. 450 to 540. Another example is the death of Balder, depicted on the Brachtiet from Faxe, Denmark, 450 to 600. Gulgabar miniature golden foils found in Denmark, Norway, and Sweden from around 550 to 1000 depict human figures, animals, and monsters. These foils are often found in post holes, suggesting ritual activity. One Icelandic saga mentions a golden image of Freyr found in a post hole, indicating a possible cultural memory of this ritual. Other artifacts like the silver pendant from Tiso, Denmark, 600 to 700, might depict Freya, though this interpretation is not certain. Bronze pins from various places in Scandinavia, sometimes missing an eye, are believed to depict Odin, as Snorri writes about Odin's 2 ravens and his sacrifice of an eye for wisdom. Certain imagery, like the Torslunda bronze plate from Sweden 500 to 700, depicts berserker warriors associated with Odin. These warriors, covered in bear or wolf skins, are described in Old Norse literature as Odin's anointed warriors who became mad as predators during war. Picture stones from Gotland in Sweden, around 800, depict multiple figures that could be associated with Norse mythology. One stone shows a rider on an 8-legged horse, possibly Odin's horse Sleipnir, though some suggest it could be Balder, Hormodr, Freyr, or a warrior being carried to Vanaheim. One major challenge in studying this period is the limited written records, which means much of our understanding comes from archaeological findings and non-Scandinavian sources. This often requires interpreting symbols and artifacts, which can lead to differing opinions among scholars. For example, while pre-Christian Scandinavian religions were influenced by various cultures, the direct influence from North Africa and the Near East is not widely supported in mainstream scholarship. It might be more accurate to focus on influences from neighboring European cultures. Erickson, 2017. To address these challenges, researchers rely on a combination of sources, including runic inscriptions, votive stones, and accounts from Roman historians. By cross-referencing these with archaeological findings, a more comprehensive picture of pre-Christian Scandinavian religious practices and beliefs emerge. In summary, the pre-Christian religious landscape of Scandinavia was a rich and complex place of rituals, gods, and cultural exchanges. This period laid the foundation for mythological tales that would later be written down and preserved. Understanding this context helps us appreciate the depth and complexity of Norse mythology. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we will dive into the Old Norse gods themselves. We'll talk about the stories, attributes, and significance of these deities, including Odin, Thor, Freya, and much more. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. See you next time on Norse Mythology 101.